Hello. So again, we are Allison and Laura, and I am an adoptive mother of two, and Allison is both an adoptee and an adoptive parents, and the two of us are both authors of children's books on adoption. And so today, Allison is going to share a little bit about her own personal adoption story, which I love to hear because it's not too often you get to hear the adoption story from an adoptee. So thank you for sharing, Allison.
Okay, thank you. Yes. So I was born in 1979. So adoption was a little bit different back then. I mean, so were car seat rules, let's be honest. My older brother, I know that you know this, but for anybody that doesn't know, my older brother, he's a year and a half older than me. He is adopted as well. The next question we always get, are you biologically related? No, we are not biologically related. But back then, the wait list for adoption was very, very long. So my parents were told it would be another 5 to 7 years before they could adopt another child. And they had just put themselves once you adopt a child back then, and for this specific agency, once you adopted a child, there was like a 6-month window, which again is why he's like a year and a half older than me. So it takes a year, and then it was final. His adoption and my I'm a bit under the weather for anyone that doesn't know. His adoption and my adoption were finalized after a full year. And so they had a 6-month wait after that to go, to put their names on this list. And so they put their names back on the list. They were not expecting anything. And I don't know the exact time frame between putting the name on the list and getting the phone call, but my brother is a year and a half older than me, so it must have been very fast. But I was a complete surprise. So I am what they call a baby born call. We don't use the term like the stork. Some people use this. Oh, it's a little taboo. But
yeah, a little cringy,
but baby born call, right? So and in fact, back then they weren't even as open about it, right? They weren't even like, hey, we've got this baby, because remember, they had huge lists, 5-7 year wait lists, right? So they almost didn't even want to let people know there's a baby. They wanted to still make sure it was a good fit first. So they were on vacation. So this is the story I've heard. They were on vacation, got the phone call, and the phone call was, we've got a new social worker here at the agency that we need you to meet. And they're like, oh, okay, well, we're down in Florida. And they're like, you need to meet them now. So they cut their vacation short, flew back, went in to meet this social worker. And they go in, and that's when the social worker tells them in person, there is a baby that has been born. She's at the hospital right now. And so then she makes this frantic phone call to my grandfather, her father, because you have to understand, my brother was still a baby. He was still in a crib, right? Yeah. So we did not have another crib. So she frantically calls her father from the agency when they're about to drive to the hospital and says, go buy a crib, put it together. We'll be home in a few hours. We got a baby coming. So they drove to the hospital. So I went straight from the hospital to their house. We won't even get into, was there a car seat? Probably not. 1979, let's be honest. But yeah, so it's kind of interesting to think about, that I was likely, people, some people think that being a surprise is a bad thing, right? But I was probably a surprise to my birth mom. I was a surprise to my adoptive parents. So I'm just a surprise all the way around. And I kind of like it. And I kind of like it.
Surprise.
There you go. There you go. And so, yeah, so that is the story of what I know. The interesting thing now that I'm a little bit older, and we'll use a segment to talk about my reunion with my birth mom. Yeah. But what I found out through the search that was interesting was the reason my parents were picked was because they were the furthest away from, because remember, it was shame and secrecy. This was 1970.
Oh, Physical.
and
Okay.
secrecy, physical distance. And now you're going to laugh because when we think of adoption now, it could be international, it could be, very, very far distances.
Mhm.
This, we're talking about an hour and a half
Away.
radius around one small town, not far from us at all. Like if we wanted to travel to go to a mall close by, we were often in that town. So we were they were picked because they were the furthest away. There may have been some other criteria that came into play. I know that her parents were the big ones that made the decision. Her parents came with every appointment that she had. And I am fairly certain, I don't know this for sure, but that she was sent away when she was pregnant.
Okay. Yeah, because
they were embarrassment and shame. But again, I would rather focus my life on being a surprise than around embarrassment and shame. That's more of a societal issue. I don't think that's an issue on me or truly on her.
No.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, it's interesting to think about. Also the fact that it took a year. And in fact, the year was even for the mother's decision. So she could change her mind within that full year.
Okay.
And then the interesting part, and I will close with this and we can always get to that part later, but I have all the paperwork, right? My parents have been very transparent with me. Just to be clear, there's like almost nothing, right?
Yeah.
So I've got only one sheet of paper with a couple paragraphs that actually describe excuse me, my birth mom, and then the little that was known about my birth father. But I also have the receipts of the adoption.
Wow.
Back then, so total night and day. Back then, it was just like court costs and a few very, very small fees for the adoption. It was very little money, which also was probably why, it was like a 5-7 year wait, etc. So that's a piece that we can always kind of talk to in another segment. But yeah, that's my adoption story. I came into this world, I was a surprise when I got created in my birth mom's belly, and then I was a surprise when I entered into this world. And there was, I love my grandfather very much. There was an adorable little Raggedy Ann and Andy, that was our sorority thing, crib waiting for me at home when I came home.
Aw, that's so awesome. I think it's so funny because we had worried too that initially that our children would be really, really close together, but sometimes just the quick ones, it's like, you don't really need a bajillion things. People, you can throw it together and get all the things that you need. The crib. Even if you didn't have a crib, you could have had a bassinet, but yeah, we go overboard as parents, with all the things that we think we need.
So true. So true.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. I don't think I ever heard that whole story. So it's nice. It was nice for me to hear it too.
Yay. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.